Okay, now that we have the document set up, the next step is to cover our image with text. So I'll walk you through how to do that. First thing that I need to do, I need to pick a font that I want to use throughout the project. Now you could change fonts, kind of up to you. You could, if the sample one that I made, I have 3 different people in there. I did a different font for each person. You could do something like that. You could have a different font for every single word. You could use one throughout. Totally up to you. But we want to pick that font ahead of time because in a little while, our text isn't actually going to be text anymore, so we won't be able to pick a font at that point. Some keys when I'm picking a font, I probably don't want anything real thin because all we're going to see the picture when we're done is the text, and the picture is going to show up where the text is. So, if I have a really thin font, I'm not going to see much of the picture on my screen, so it's going to be a little tough to see what's there. So just kind of a bit of advice. So I picked the font that I like. I'm going to make the size 48, just something nice and big. You're going to see this is going to change as you go. So no exact number here, but 48 is a good starting point. As far as color goes, just make sure it's something that you'll be able to see. So white in my case is fine. I could also go with some off-the-wall color. I'm not going to see this color later, so again, it really doesn't matter what color I pick. I just need to have a color that's going to be easy to see. Next thing I need to do, I am now ready to type. So I'm going to go ahead and click and type out a word. Now the key is here I would like to use all capital letters. The reason for that, it gives me a nice rectangular square shape that will be easier to apply and kind of fill this fish in with text if I'm starting off with rectangle. That's going to make it a little easier. Now that I've typed my word, next thing I need to do is I want to change this from text to a picture. So once this is a picture, it's no longer text. It's literally like I found a picture on the internet and I put it on my project. Before I do that, if I'm not 100% sure on how to spell a word, I'm going to go to Edit, Check Spelling. Now I can do this as many times as I need. If you spelled everything right, it'll say spell check complete. If it's not, something will pop up. It'll kind of show you what words it didn't understand, and you can go through and see if it needs corrected. So let's assume I spelled everything right on this particular word. I'm ready to move forward. Next thing I got to do is take this from text and convert it into a picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the layer and rasterize the type. That's going to convert it from text, and now you can see it's become a picture here. I can no longer like highlight, backspace, and change letters. It is a picture. So now I'm ready to move this thing around. Now if you happen to have had show transform controls on, I would recommend you turn that off on your move tool. It's going to make the rest of this a little bit easier. So I'm going to put it roughly where I want this. Let's say I was doing this upper portion of the body. Now you have to decide kind of where these words are going to go. What I mean by that, you need to kind of break down your object mentally into pieces. You don't have to do quite as much as you would do in Illustrator if you're tracing something with a pen, but you still want to break your project down into parts. So for example, I might do the orange of the body as like one piece in my head. Now I might include the eye on that. I may have the eye as a separate piece. I'm going to do this fin as a separate piece. But again, I'm not going to break each little piece of the fin down into separate parts. Just mentally, this is one piece in my head. So let's say I was doing this for the fin. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start transforming this to fit the shape of the fin. To do that, I'm going to do Command T. Now I'm going to rotate and scale this thing. I do not need to hold Shift here because text can be wider or taller than it originally was, and it'll still look right. And I'm just making adjustments here to get this as close to the shape as I can. Now before I hit enter, and this is important, I don't want to move on yet. I want to finish adjusting this before I move on. I'm going to right click because I'm still in the middle of transforming this. I get this menu here. If you don't see these choices, it's because you have not clicked Command T. So the one I want is warp. There's 3 different spots that I can move things around now. I can grab the corners and make adjustments. I can grab the little arms, the little circles coming out of the corners to make adjustments. And I can also grab anywhere on the word itself to make adjustments. And this is the advantage of us converting this from text into a picture. It gives us this ability to make these adjustments that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do to text. Text, normally we just have like a drop down menu to make these changes. So there we go. I got that kind of fit nicely on there. I can still read the word. Again, my font's a little tough to read, but it doesn't interfere with the rest of the body, but it pretty well covers this fin. You can make these pieces as big or as small as you like. As far as making the pieces more detailed and smaller, it's going to look better. If I do just a couple big words on this thing, it's probably not going to look as good as if I break this mentally into smaller pieces and I do more. So I'm happy with how this looks now. I'm ready to press enter. You would repeat this process over and over again until the whole object is covered. So to show you just kind of an example of how to do this the wrong way, so you kind of avoid this, let's say that I typed fish, and again I'm using all capital letters. I go to my move tool, I right click, I rasterize that type. Next, if I did Command T, so far I've done everything right. I move this wherever I want it to sit, I rotate it, and here's what I'm going to do wrong. Let's say I get this and I press enter. And now I do Command T again. I right click and I do warp. I wanted to warp that before I pressed enter, but I hit enter, I'm right clicking, or I did Command T, and now I'm going to warp this separately. If you notice, the grid doesn't line up with the word anymore. It's much harder to move pieces around. See how the word's not moving as I do that? I can only kind of move it in this area here, and there's a lot of blank spots that I can't really move around or do anything with. So my advice, do it all at once. So again, to just kind of run through that again, if I go back in my history of stuff, after I rasterize it, when I do Command T, I want to rotate, scale, whatever I need to do, and while I'm still in this menu, I right click and go to warp. That will give me more control over this shape. Now if I grab the corner, you can see it really adjusts much better. And again, when I'm happy, I press enter and I just keep covering it. And I wouldn't have both of these say fish. I could maybe do goldfish, different varieties of goldfish, facts about goldfish, it could be whatever. You just want the text to somehow relate to the pictures. Alright, and that's how you cover it.